In Exodus chapter 16, the children of Israel, while in the wilderness, began to ask the Almighty to feed them. It was at this point Jehovah introduced two things. One, he introduced the manna, but he also tested the children of Israel by introducing the Sabbath at the same time. He said to them that they were to go out and gather 6 days, but on the 6th day, they were to get twice as much. In this manner, he would test them to see if they would keep his command. He later instructed that 6 days they were to do their work, but the 7th day was a Sabbath day, and they were to keep it holy in remembering it. Well, we are in the 6th day as it is coming to a close. We are about to enter into the 7th day, and this is Shabbat Night Live.
It's Shabbat Night Live from Charlotte, North Carolina, with your host, Michael Rood. Join Michael's guest host, Arthur Bailey, and co-host Scott Laird as they welcome musical guest, Mishkanim. Now here he is, the host of Spirit-Filled Living on the Church Channel, Arthur Bailey.
Well, welcome to Shabbat Night Live. They allowed me to come back again. I guess I must have done okay last week. Well, I'm excited to be here again instead of Michael with our co-host, Scott Laird. Scott, how are you today?
Good, just thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Man.
Shabbat Shalom. It's always great to be with you. Michael's going to be doing a teaching, a continuation on the book of Judges tonight, and we've got a great program, ladies and gentlemen, in store for you today. Well, we're going to be talking about several things. We've got a musical guest, Mishkanim, that's going to be joining us. And then tell us a little bit about how far this ministry is reaching around the globe.
Well, we're just pleased to be on the air every day. And like we said last week, that this started off very small. It was just Chaim Goldman and Michael out in the middle of the desert shooting, I believe it was Sodom and Gomorrah, was their very first program. And now we are able to bless people every week, going all around the world via satellite. And we really feel that this is our calling. This is to have the Great Commission by broadcast is the best way to spread the gospel to the most people in the most efficient manner. And the way we're doing that is we have a brand new 24/7 Messianic network, which you are on. It's messianic.tv, www.messianic.tv. We can be found on there. Also, we're on Roku. We're on live Roku. We're on the Inspiration Network, live stream. We're on YouTube. Our high definition archive is there on a Rood Awakenings channel. Look for that. We're also at roodawakening.tv on the internet. You can find us there. You'll find this program and on all of our other programs on there as well. And iTunes, we have downloadable podcasts in full high definition. And we're also on TBN, the church channel. A lot of folks who are incarcerated right now are watching us via the church channel. TBN Enlace, the Spanish Christian network. Chaim had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that was the first network that took us on. I didn't know that. So we're still on there. We must be doing something right, I guess. And the Gospel Channel in Europe also promotes this program, also does the Omega Television in Iceland. We also have the Oral Roberts University GEB America Network. And in Canada, we are on Hope TV. That's a brand new one. And our next big goal is Daystar, because once we are on Daystar, we could go all over the Middle East. That is a big thing in Israel. And so Michael would really like to have us in Israel broadcasting there. And I'm sure that everyone else would like to have that as well, because that's our homeland, right? That's where we're going. And so we just want to encourage everybody to, if you want to sponsor a country, you can do that. You can sponsor a country where you want to see this ministry broadcast, and you can do that through Bring It to the World. And once you're a part of that, you're called an ambassador, and we'll get into that later. You'll see a little bit of a promotion on that later. But that's how you can help us get the gospel to the kingdom, to the world. And it's quite simple. Just become a member of the Ambassador Club through Bring It to the World, and you can be a part of this, quite literally, and bringing everything that we're talking about to points all over the globe.
Well, there's a lot of coverage taking place. If someone would say, why do you need to be in all of those places? I mean, why is that important for the voice to go forward?
Well, it's just, you know, not everybody is going to understand a teaching from one person or another. It's, you know, if there's that one person that, you know, Michael's way of teaching can get in there and make them realize, you know, that's a great blessing that he has, is he's able to reach people that a lot of people are not able to, because he brings it right down to a, you know, grassroots level, and helps people understand the basic need to go back to the feasts, understand how they all play into Yeshua's birth, death, resurrection, and second coming, and that's how we tie it all together. And so if one person in that one country that, you know, is not understanding from any other teacher, if we could get in there and that person can be saved, I mean, that's worth it. That just makes it all worth it. And that's like Michael says, you know, if just one person catches on, that's great.
And at one point, I was that one person.
Weren't we all?
I mean, here we are today as that one person who heard the message. And it's so important for the message, the true gospel of the kingdom, to go out to the entire world, because there are a lot of voices out there. But the distinction between this voice and many of the others is that the true gospel of the kingdom is going forth from this ministry. Well, we are right now in the Adar Bet. This is the 13th biblical month. We are looking at day 27.
On what now? What do we call it? This calendar has
This
a long.
is
Okay, let's see if we can get it this time.
Astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar.
Okay.
Now that is a mouthful. But what's important about this particular calendar is that this calendar is focusing on the signs that the Almighty gave us that we should watch for and look for. It's not a projection, even though we know that there are certain amount of days in certain months, and we can kind of identify when the new moon is going to show. But this calendar literally goes by the Almighty's time clock. And so when we think about it, the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar is an addition to the chronological gospels. I mean, it ties it together. There's so much that you can learn, even from the articles that are here. This is a must-have, wouldn't you say?
It is, and especially this year, because as you mentioned, we're in the month of Adar Bet, actually, and that is the 13th month, which it's sort of like a leap year. It rolls around only every once in a while, and this year, with the 13th month, this is the year that happened when Yeshua was on the earth and his 70-week ministry. That's the only way it could be 70 weeks, is if that Adar Bet was in there. And so this year is really special. We get to experience it, and we sort of we're part of that whole experience again. It's like the movie of Yeshua coming alive going, oh, we get to live exactly what he lived, because this is a year with an Adar Bet. And we are at the 27th day, right? We're heading into the 27th day of Adar Bet, and so we're nearing the end of the month. And you know, this was the time that Yeshua was getting ready for the Passover. He had one last tour of the Galilee. That's what he did during these last weeks. It's strange that, you know, in the chronological Gospels, we're able to go through almost every week of what Yeshua did. And then there's these span of 3 weeks right near the end. It was an Adar Bet. And he went through the Galilee one last time, and there's not much said about it. And there's this sort of eerie silence that you know he's getting ready for his sacrifice. And we know that that's about to happen. And speaking of his sacrifice, that happened at Passover. And that's coming up soon, and you're going to be a speaker there.
Yes, I'm going to be there. And of course, Michael Rood is hosting the Passover. That's going to be at the Renaissance Charlotte Suites Hotel. I will be speaking. Then there will be special performances by Andrew Hopkinson, who's coming all the way from South Africa to be with us. And then there is Steve Laird. Now, I understand there's a bit of information about this gentleman, Steve Laird. I've heard his music, powerful voice, and really just a phenomenal singer.
Yes, Steve Laird is a relatively new artist with Oak Hill Music, and he was named the best new soloist by a major music magazine. And so we have this fellow coming to us for Passover, doing a special musical presentation. His songs are on the chart. You may have heard them on the radio already. And his voice is just, it is astronomical. When you come to Passover, we've talked about Passover before, when the presentation of the Lamb representing Yeshua, and I don't want to give away, a spoiler alert here. We don't want to.
But I'll tell you,
don't want to give it away. But it's amazing, and to my understanding, we're going to have Steve sing during that time. And boy, you'd better bring your tissues because you're just going to realize the sacrifice of Mashiach before your very eyes, and
He's
you're
actually going to be singing.
That is the plan. We are going to have him singing at some point. I'm not sure if it's at that exact point, but we know that it's going to be a powerful time. And just be prepared to be moved and have this in your mind as you're not going to be the same when you leave Passover 2014 with Michael Rood from April 18th to 20th, because it's going to be a really life-changing event. And it doesn't even going to cost that much to do it, because it's $99 a person. That covers the Passover meal, which is, you've been there. It's an incredible spread.
It is.
And we've got, it seems like a never-ending flow of food, which is wonderful. All teaching, all the music, you get that all for $99. The hotel is normally well over $200 per night.
Very nice.
Very nice. It's an all-suites hotel. It's below $100 a night. You have to go to our website to check this out. Go to roodawakening.tv and go on the events, and you'll find Passover there, and you'll see what that price is. You won't believe it, and it's really, really a bargain. And speaking of bargains, kids 3 to 11 are $29 for all the festivities as well, all weekend. So it's a real good chance for families to come to Passover. It's not going to cost that much. Yeah, it's a little bit of an investment, but you know what? It's well worth it. It's a life-changing thing. And then speaking of life-changing, right after that, I have always wanted to go on one of Michael's Israel tours. Have you ever been on one?
I almost. I got to New York.
You got to, oh boy. There's a story here somewhere.
There's a story.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well,
but I've been to Israel before, but just not with Michael. But
okay.
I look forward to it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's coming up this year, May 4th to 16th, and we only take 50 people, and that is so that we can have the best experience possible for those 50 people. We don't have 4 buses all trying to go somewhere like a giant elephant. We just want to keep it small so we can be efficient and see as many places as possible, because believe you me, I've heard from people who've been there, and they say it's, bring your running shoes, because you're going to see a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, and you're going to see things that you will not see in any other tour. Michael takes you to places that, after the tour, I'm sure you look at yourself and go, really, we made it there? But it's going to be an eye-opening tour. You'll never see places like this anywhere else. We're going to be able to see, go to Reuven Prager. He was on the show a little while ago, and he restores things in the manner of the way they were in ancient Israel. So he's got the half shekel and wonderful things like this. We're visiting with Reuven, along with many other things. And if you want all the information, you can go to roodawakening.tv/Israel Tour 2014. And so, like I say, there's 2 really life-changing events coming up here very shortly. And if you make it to either one of them, you'll be blessed. And we want to offer more things like this in the future. But make it to one of these. You got to come to Passover. Tell us about your experience with Passover, because you've been to this, I've been to this, and it's an amazing thing.
Well, I tell you, it is. It's an incredible event. You'll never see Passover the same way after you've seen Michael present it. I've been to different Passover Seders. I've done a Passover Seder, but he brings this Passover event to life. And, even with the tour and the Chronological Gospels, the tour is not just to see the land of Israel. There are all kinds of sites that people go. But what Michael has really tried to do is tie all of this together so that individuals would have a better understanding of the life of Yeshua. It's really about bringing the scriptures alive, not just in an event where you celebrate, but Michael meticulously show us event, day, time, everything that goes on, and it literally brings the Gospels alive to be at one of these events that Michael Michael put on.
All right, now before Passover, that's why we have the Passover gift. You can see it on the table here in front of us. There's 4 items that we're offering for the March Love Gift. And if you want to give $40 toward the ministry, you'll get Rood Franson's book called Behold the Lamb. And that's a simplified Messianic Passover Haggadah. Haggadah means the telling. It's basically the instruction book for a Passover meal, Passover event. So you'll get that along with Michael's teaching. You mentioned the depth and breadth of Michael's teaching. And he has a 5 DVD set on Passover called The Path to Freedom. Starts all the way back from the time of Noah and shows our path to freedom to come out of Egypt. And you'll get those 2 things with a gift of $40. For a gift of $120 this month, you'll get those 2 in addition to 2 more items. And those are there's a matzah cover that we have. It's embroidered with the words Pesach on the front. It's very beautiful, and it has the 3 slots where you can put in the matzah bread. And if you've ever done a Passover Seder, you know what that's all about. And the middle one being the afikomen. And then also there's the Kiddush cup, which we have as well, which is etched in a beautiful gold. It's a wonderful thing to have at your Passover table as well. So the March Love Gift, gifts of $40 or $120, that's what you can expect, and we encourage you to do it so you can get all these wonderful things for your Passover Seder.
Wow. Well, there is so much more to come. We're going to be going into our question and answer when we come back, so please stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
After 40 years of labor, including 3 decades of restoring the ancient biblical Hebrew calendar, together with the experiences that accompany years of living in Jerusalem and the Galilee, Michael Rood presents the inspired gospel records in chronological order to enrich your lifetime quest for truth. The chronological gospels piece together the life and ministry of the Messiah in a way no one has ever seen before. It reveals depth, beauty, and truth in the Word that could never be understood until it was put together to tell the story as it happened, complete and chronological. And now you can order your copy today. You can get the chronological gospels in 3 different ways. For your purchase of $69, you can order your own copy of the Chronological Gospels Bible. Or for your purchase of $117, you can receive the Chronological Gospels Essential Package, which includes the Chronological Gospels Bible, the Chronological Gospels 4 DVD set, Chronological Gospels Chart. Or for your purchase of $347, you can receive the Chronological Gospels Scholars Package, which includes the Chronological Gospels Bible, the Chronological Gospels 4 DVD set, Chronological Gospels Chart, the astronomically and agriculturally corrected Hebrew Travel Calendar, Creator's Calendar DVD, Spring and Fall Feasts DVDs, Raiders of the Lost Book DVD, Hebrew Yeshua versus Greek Jesus, Who Was Your Unauthorized Covering DVD, Mystery of Iniquity, Great Secret of Solomon's Temple DVD. If you purchased each item separately, you would pay over $444. Call today to receive your copy of the Chronological Gospels Bible or package set. Don't miss your opportunity to be blessed in the ways of the Messiah. Call or visit our website today. This month, for your gift of $40 or more, Michael Rood would like for you to have as his gift Rood Franson's enlightening book, Behold the Lamb. This book was written with you in mind. Behold the Lamb features a dynamic Messianic Passover service that explores the meaning of Passover for believers in Messiah Yeshua. Also included are basic instructions on how to celebrate Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, recipes for a festive dinner, and some fun songs that are sure to enhance the mood. You'll also receive Michael Rood's dynamic teaching, Passover, The Path to Freedom. In this 5 DVD teaching set, you'll learn the history of Passover, how to celebrate the Passover Seder, why the Feast of Passover is so important to us today, and so much more.
From the flood of Noah, we trace the lineage of the family of Shem through Abraham, and now we find that the Almighty speaks directly to Abraham several times during his life, and the culminating event was when the Almighty told him to sacrifice, to kill the child that he was given by promise. and this was the ultimate test in Avram's life.
And if you call now with your gift of $120 or more, Michael will include this beautifully handcrafted Passover matzah cover from the land of Israel. Delicately created from the finest of fabrics and materials, this matzah cover relates the importance of Passover and is worthy of the custom. Finally, Michael would also like for you to receive as his gift the elegant Kiddush cup and saucer set. This porcelain goblet with saucer's golden design will help you remember the sacrifice that was made for you by the King of Kings. Call now with your gift of $40 or get Michael's complete Passover collection for a gift of $120 or more. Or you can visit our website at www.aroodawakening.tv. Bring all of the celebration of Passover to your family today.
Well, welcome back. I certainly hope you can appreciate that Chronological Gospel Pack. It is an incredible addition to any student of the Bible library, so make sure you take advantage of that. We've got, at this point, questions from cyberspace.
Coming in as we speak. Claudia is a person from cyberspace, and she asks, it's strangely enough, what is the best way to study the chronological Gospels? Well, you are a pastor and you are a leader of a congregation here in Charlotte, and you use the chronological Gospels. What is the best way to study it? What do you say?
Well, I'll tell you that when Michael put this book, now it wasn't this one originally, as he was putting the chronological gospel together, when he put it in my hands, he says, Arthur, and these are the instructions he gave me. He says, now what you want to do is that before you get into the Bible itself, there is so much to learn simply from the index. Because through the index, and he pointed it out to me, he says, in the index, there are these numbers which take you to the page and the event. And each of these events will tell you exactly where the Messiah was at any given point with the corresponding scripture that is there. And so from a study perspective, looking at this, saying, okay, if I'm going to study a particular part of the Gospel of Luke, I find that particular portion of the Gospel of Luke, I can see the events, and then when I go and read it, there are actually cases here where he goes into much more detail than what is here in the index. But he said to me, make sure you study the index first, and you'll learn so much more about this so that as you go forward, you'll have a greater understanding of it.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. And then you mentioned the index. It's color coded.
Yeah.
Right. With each one of the Gospels is colored. Matthew's blue, and etc. Luke is yellow, and the timeline chart that you can download. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But the timeline chart that you can get for the chronological Gospels is color-coded the same way.
Yeah.
And so you can follow that color coding and figure out where things are. So that's a perfect complement to have. And then to time it all with the calendar we were playing with earlier with the long name, the astronomically and agriculturally corrected, yes, you watch me do it, biblical Hebrew calendar. You can match these dates up with what's in the Bible, and then you can really start to understand, wow, it was on this day that Yeshua was in the desert, or as we were talking about earlier, this was the day he was making his way around the Galilee and had the Passover and his own sacrifice in the back of his mind. So yeah, to have all three pieces, I think is great. But yet, to read the index first, that seems very wise. And also, when we ask people to review the chronological Gospels, we ask them, just read the introduction first, and that is maybe all you need to do. You may not even need to go beyond any of the pages, because again, you'll learn so much in just reading that.
Yeah. And I tell you, Michael has made it so easy. He's taken all of the years of his study and his time living in Israel, combining with the tours, and he's put together a package of information culminating with the chronological gospels that really take you inside the gospels like nothing else I've ever experienced.
Right, and we're going to talk more about that later. We have a whole section today we're going to be talking about the chronological gospels. So let's get on to our second question. We have a fellow named Buzz who's asking another Passover question. Do I really have to eat sheep or lamb on Passover? I'd rather just pass it over, he makes the joke. What is the thinking on eating lamb at Passover?
Well, lamb was introduced as, number one, the most important thing about the Passover lamb was really the blood. When they were to take the blood of the lamb and put it on the doorpost of their homes, and that was a signal that those who were under or in that home was covered by the blood of the lamb, so that the angel of death would pass over, and those who were not, who did not have the blood on their doorpost, they were, of course, the firstborn. But as it relates to the lamb itself, there were specific instructions that were given to those who were in the land of Egypt, which is a little bit different than the instructions that were given to those who entered into the land of Israel. And there are some specific instructions that are given that the Passover lamb could not be sacrificed any place. There was a specific place that the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed, and there was a specific place that was designated that the children of Israel had to come up in order to participate in that Passover event. Today, we can't keep the Passover as it is prescribed in Scripture.
Right.
So now, do an individual have to eat sheep? Do they have to eat lamb? Well, one, you cannot sacrifice the lamb as was required. You could not do it within any gate of your city. So it kind of leaves it a little bit somewhat optional. And I know my daughter who is a vegetarian, and there are lots of vegetarians and vegans who prefer not to eat the meat of a sheep. And that's something they'll have to take up with the Almighty at a later time. So the short answer of the question is, from my perspective, probably not.
Right. So if we're going to have lamb, it's more of a remembrance and a tradition and an excuse to have some other meat you don't normally have during the year. Okay. And the only thing we're really commanded to do, correct me if I'm wrong, is to eat the matzah and the bitter herbs.
Yes. The key piece of Passover actually is after, which is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And of course, these are elements that are in the Passover Seder, but for the next 7 days, they're to eat unleavened bread.
Okay, so it's the unleavened bread is the focus, and the lamb, even though it was, putting the blood over the doorpost and all of that fanfare, and that is not, that can't be the focus now, as you said, because we can't properly keep the Passover. We are remembering the Passover. So that's something we need to, in effect, remember, is that we are not really keeping the Passover. So the lamb is not really the focus, other than being the prophecy for Mashiach, which we need to focus on.
And it's important because I've ran across all kinds of groups out there. There are individuals who insist that you have to sacrifice the Passover lamb. You have to put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. You have to eat standing up, leaning on a staff. I mean, there are groups out there and people out there who teach that, and they fail to realize that we're not in Egypt. Well, they spiritualize it now by saying, well, we are in Egypt. Egypt is, America or the world.
Right.
But the bottom line is that there were specific instructions given to the people, the children of Israel, when they were in Egypt, and then there was a second set or different set of instructions that were given as to how they were to keep the Passover from that day forward.
Right. Okay. But the focus being the lamb, not eating it. But who is the lamb? That's the real
Messiah,
question.
as Paul said, he is our Passover lamb.
That's right. Okay. Sandy asks another question. We are asked about a pure language. In Zephaniah 3:9, Sandy asks the question, as quoted in this verse, "For then I shall move the people to a pure language, for all to call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. What is pure language referring to in this verse, she asks.
Well, from my personal study, the pure language is actually the Almighty purifying the languages of the people. The language of whatever a person will speak, he's purifying it so that we're all speaking with a pure tongue, a pure heart. I know that there are those who say, well, the pure language is Hebrew. And I don't dispute that. I can see how they could even probably come to that conclusion. But in the context of what he's saying, he's talking about the perversion that people speak through language, that when we are purified, when our heart becomes pure, when we come into relationship, that he's going to purify our speech. And when we speak, we will no longer speak from a perverse perspective, but we will speak from a purified perspective in a purified voice. And that's what I believe this purified language would be.
That makes a lot of sense, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. Right. So we're not talking about any particular language. We're looking at it too literally there. If we're asking this question, it's more about it's purifying, like you said, our heart. And from the purification of our heart will our mouth speak. And that, therefore, we will have words that are pure to call upon the name of the Lord.
And Paul actually elaborates on this when he writes to the Colossians. He talks about how they are no longer to speak with perverse lips, they're not to speak profanely. You know, the idea of the priest and the prophets teaching the people the difference between the holy and the profane, that we're not to let profane things come out of our mouth. James talks about how our words and the tongue of our mouth, that we can't, no well will have bitter water and sweet water coming out of the same place. So that our words, our mouth, our tongue has to be one who would speak out of reverence for the Almighty. And when we speak as one who represents him. And so he has to purify us, and then we'll bring forth, I believe, a pure speech out of a pure heart.
All right. So speaking out of a pure heart, we want to bring that speech to the rest of the world. And we can only do that through the support of our ambassadors. And so we want to encourage you to help us bring pure language, even
pure
through
speech.
English. You can still have pure language through English to the world, and to all the other languages of the world. We want to bring this good news to the rest of the world. It's called Bring It to the World. Here's how you can help.
Around the world today, people are hungry for answers. They're asking, who am I? Is this all that I am? And praying to gods of wood and stone, who cannot hear and will not answer. Who will help them understand? As followers of the Messiah, we know the truth that sets men free, the truth about the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
And the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations.
On November 2nd, 2012, A Rood Awakening International began to take the word of the Messiah to over 150 countries around the world. Now you can partner with Michael Rood to sponsor one of these countries. Your sponsorship will help cover the cost of staying on the air in the country of your choice. Today, you can join the Ambassadors Club by sponsoring a country for as little as $100 per month, or a one-time gift of $1,200.
I am sponsoring Marshall Islands.
We're going to sponsor Cyprus.
I'm sponsoring Canada.
Michael Rood's teachings are absolutely like nothing that we've ever experienced before.
This is joyous, and it's not just the joy, but you have that inner peace knowing that you're doing what Yehovah tells you to do.
If your life has been blessed, if you've been ministered to by this ministry, then we are asking you to step in and support this ministry.
I'm sponsoring Colombia because I love Michael Rood's ministry, and I hope God opens the door right where Colombia's heart is at, and I hope the word spreads.
What are the souls of your brethren worth to you? Call today with your monthly gift of $100 or a one-time gift of $1,200 and partner with Michael as a member of the Ambassadors Club. Together, we can bring it to the world.
This month, for your gift of $40 or more, Michael Rood would like for you to have as his gift Rood Franson's enlightening book, Behold the Lamb. This book was written with you in mind. Behold the Lamb features a dynamic messianic Passover service that explores the meaning of Passover for believers in Messiah Yeshua. Also included are basic instructions on how to celebrate Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, recipes for a festive dinner, and some fun songs that are sure to enhance the mood. You'll also receive Michael Rood's dynamic teaching, Passover, The Path to Freedom. In this 5 DVD teaching set, you'll learn the history of Passover, how to celebrate the Passover Seder, why the Feast of Passover is so important to us today, and so much more.
From the flood of Noah, we trace the lineage of the family of Shem through Abraham, and now we find that the Almighty speaks directly to Abraham several times during his life, and the culminating event was when the Almighty told him to sacrifice, to kill the child that he was given by promise. And this was the ultimate test in Abraham's life.
And if you call now with your gift of $120 or more, Michael will include this beautifully handcrafted Passover matzah cover from the land of Israel. Delicately created from the finest of fabrics and materials, this matzah cover relates the importance of Passover and is worthy of the custom. Finally, Michael would also like for you to receive as his gift the elegant Kiddush cup and saucer set. This porcelain goblet with saucer's golden design will help you remember the sacrifice that was made for you by the King of Kings. Call now with your gift of $40 or get Michael's complete Passover collection for a gift of $120 or more. Or you can visit our website at www.aroodawakening.tv. Bring all of the celebration of Passover to your family today.
Well, welcome back. And if you're not an ambassador, then become one. Well, at this time, we're going to go inside Israel with our Israel update. And here is Ariella Stegall.
Thank you, Arthur. Welcome back to Inside Israel for Shabbat Night Live. I'm Ariella Stegall. Jerusalem's municipality is planning to fund and teach taxi drivers English. Israel's capital is a tourist magnet. However, many taxi drivers in the city are unable to converse in English, outside basic sentences, of course. Tourists expect to not only be driven around, but would enjoy the drivers to share about their country, recommend good restaurants, or places they should possibly visit. It's also been expressed by Jerusalem's taxi drivers that they would like to make conversation in English without constantly searching for the words. In other news, Israel's Defense Force fulfilled the dream of a boy with cancer through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Roe, while receiving cancer treatments in Haifa, would see the Israeli naval vessels coming and going through his window. When the Make-A-Wish Foundation approached Roe, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to sail aboard one of the Israeli Navy ships that he'd seen countless times from his window. Major General Ram Rothberg, the Israel Navy commander, fulfilled Roe's request without hesitation. The young boy received a full tour of the ship. He even had the opportunity to see a live firing exercise at sea. Before returning to shore, the crew gathered, giving Roe his silver Navy pin, telling him he was a part of the Navy family. Impacting the life of one, dominoes down to impact the lives of thousands. I'm Ariella Stegall. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Inside Israel.
Well, thank you, Ariella, for that Israel update. The Chronological Gospels.
Yes.
This is a tool, as I've said before, and in continuing on with our Q&A, a tool that every believer, any person that is serious about the gospel should have a copy of this book. Tell us why.
Well, it lists all of Yeshua's events in his life. one after the other. And so we're able to see what he's done day by day, week by week. And by doing that, we not only get a better idea of Yeshua's life. Some people say, well, why do I need that? Why do I need a chronological gospels? I can read his story in any other Bible 4 times over in the 4 gospels. But if we piece it all together in chronological order, we get a much better idea of a much bigger picture. And that is the picture of prophecies of old being fulfilled. And you begin to see, oh, that's why this happened. And that's why this happened. And that's why that had to happen. And it all begins to come together. And then it also helps the book of Revelation make more sense. Because as you make Yeshua's life make more sense and you understand the order of things and why they happened when they happened, you have context. And as Michael always says, without context, you can't understand anything in the Bible. You have to understand where the writers were coming from, what was happening at the time, when it was happening, so that you understand, oh, that, Yeshua died at Passover. Why did he die at Passover? Well, because he was the Passover lamb. I think most, even our Christian friends, would understand that part. But the fact that he was born during Sukkot, well, why does that matter? Well, Sukkot was the remembrance of God coming to dwell with his people in the desert. That was the prophecy. Then when Yeshua was born, of course, that prophecy was partially fulfilled. It's going to be fulfilled again in the end times, but he came to dwell with his people again. That's why that happened then. And so as you see the feasts lining up with Yeshua's life, all of a sudden it makes sense. Okay, Yeshua's life, Yeshua, who I call Messiah, and I want to live like him and I want to, focus on him. His life was all about the feasts. So that means I need to go back and understand the feasts. And that's what the chronological gospels enables us to do, because not only does it have the gospels in it, it also has the book of Acts and Revelation. And so then you can start to piece together everything about Yeshua's life, then the giving of the Spirit, and then of course all the events coming in Revelation.
And there's one significant event that made it possible for all of this to come together as it relates to the feeding.
Yeah, that was the feeding of the 5,000. When Michael started doing all this, I mean, he's been interested in this for 40 years, all his life pretty much. And so he started piecing things together one after the other, and it all started coming together. And then suddenly he realized that the feeding of the 5,000 was, and I found this shocking when he told me, it was the only miracle that is recorded in all 4 Gospels. I mean, I'm sure that's
so you could go backwards, you could go forward from that moment.
That's right. Now you have some context in there. So, if something is happening in this early spring, and then something happens in the early, later spring after that, that, okay, well, that was Passover in there. If something was happening in the late summer, and then all of a sudden you've got events after a certain verse that are in the fall, but something talks about Passover, all of a sudden now you can recognize that there was a translation error. And that's what Michael found with a couple of places in the Bible. And he went, well, now that I know that, because of the chronology of the rest of this, that these things are happening in summer, and then 2 verses later I see something happen in the fall, and in the middle I have something happening in the spring, that can't be right. And so not only does it help us line up Yeshua's life and all the prophecies associated with it, it helps us correct the inadvertent mistranslations of the Bible. Not that, whether somebody meant to do it or not, well, that's hard to say, but at least we can recognize those. Because if we don't recognize those, we don't have chronology, and then it all backs up to the whole context thing. If we don't have proper chronology, we don't have proper context, and we really can't understand what to look for if we truly believe that we are in the end times. What do we look for if we don't know what we're looking for, based on Yeshua's life and the prophecies associated with it? And I think that's why, as a pastor, you've probably found that very helpful when teaching people.
Well, it's been extremely helpful, because actually looking at Yeshua's life in a chronological order from the time he started his ministry until the time he ascended, with the instructions that he gave to his disciples, that now, for that, just having that particular knowledge, it begins to remove the blinders, if you would. There's no longer guessing and depending on commentaries that give a picture from a Gentile or a Greek perspective is really seeing the Hebrew roots of the scripture come alive in Yeshua's life. And so from a study perspective, I'm telling you, it's a valuable tool for me, and it gives me a lot more clarity and depth as I'm preparing and then as I'm presenting, having proof. It's not just, such and such says this or such and such says that. You can point to the exact day in scripture, and then with the chart, the chronological order, it's just a phenomenal tool.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said Hebraic. People say, well, why do I need to have a Hebrew mindset? What's all the big deal about being Greek or Hebrew? Who cares? As long as the Bible's in English and I can read it. Right. And to a certain point, okay, sure, yeah, that's true. You can get the basic message of Yeshua, why he came, and millions of people have been saved over the last 2,000 years because of it. But if you really want to know the Messiah, and especially now when we're in such a crucial time in our world, we need to know more than that. We need to go a step beyond, and that's where having a Hebraic mindset is important, because, whether Matthew was written originally in Greek or Hebrew or any of the other Gospels for that matter, or any of the rest of the New Testament, what was it written originally first? We could debate that to the ends of the earth, and it doesn't matter. The reason why it doesn't matter is because originally all those guys, the fishermen, and Paul, Shaul, all of them, whether they spoke 2 or 3 languages, sure, maybe they spoke Hebrew, maybe they spoke Greek, but they were from a Hebrew culture. And that is where a lot of the idioms come from the Bible, all the little sayings, the little quips and things that we don't understand because they were just sort of a part of Hebrew life. Like if someone from that time were here and we said, well, next Friday, I'm going to celebrate with my friends and we're going to have green beer. And if that was written in 2,000 years later, they might assume, well, the people of the year 2014 made beer with algae, or something, because they don't understand the context. We were talking about, St. Patrick's Day, for example. Well, that's where we need to understand the Hebrew context. What was going on then? What were the celebrations they had? What were the sayings they always spoke? By understanding that, then we have context, and that's why a Hebrew mindset is important. We need to sort of remove ourselves from modern day and get into the Hebrew mindset just a little bit, just so we can understand a little more about Mashiach.
Absolutely, because the bottom line is that he was Hebrew.
That's right.
The people that he was sent to were Hebrew. The first century believers, they were all Hebrew. The focal point of the temple and Hebrew culture and worship, it is all in the context from a Hebrew perspective. So looking at it from any other perspective is going to see a culture through eyes it's impossible for them to understand, which I think is why when people read Paul, they fail to see Paul from a Hebrew perspective and they come to Gentile Western Greek conclusions, which typically is not what Paul is saying. So Yeshua's life even brings clarity and understanding to Paul's teachings, to Peter's teachings, to James' teaching, to the entire New Testament books.
Right. Yeah, it's just important to have context. That's what we need in order to understand Messiah. And that's pretty much the bottom line. That's why the chronological Gospels are so good. It brings that chronology and that context to life so that we can understand better and look forward with clear eyes of knowing what we're looking to.
Absolutely. And so there's some special offer timeline.
That's right. Yes. Very quickly, if you want to get a free copy of the gospel, the 70-week timeline of Messiah's ministry, you can download it for free at chronogospels.com. And if you go on the main page there, you'll see the image there that you click on. It says download the free timeline. You click on there, give us a little bit of information, and you can get a timeline that you can read on your computer or smartphone for free. You can't print it out, but at least you can have it side by side when you're studying the Chronological Gospels. And you also get a $20 coupon to buy the Chronological Gospels if you do not already have one.
Excellent. Well, to understand what's happening in the ministry, to be caught up to date, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the Rood Review with Annie and Laura, or should I say Laura and Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie.
And I'm Laura.
And you're here in time for the Rood Review.
Annie, Passover is going great. We've got so many people signed up. Dare I say that it just might end up being a sellout?
A sellout? Really? Okay. You know what that means. I have questions.
Annie, you always have questions. But you know what? I actually have answers. In fact, if you go to roodawakening.tv/Seder14, SEDER14, you'll find our Passover page. We've posted some questions and their answers right there on that page.
What about, will it be airing online?
It's there.
And what if there is a sellout?
It is so there.
What about times, weather, food information?
Yeah, it's there.
And if my question is not answered?
Email Annie.
Sure.
Threw that one at you. Okay, Annie, if the great Passover Inquisition is over, I've got some information to leak.
Well, it's not gossip if it's good news.
That's
so,
right.
Can I hear it?
Absolutely, and you can hear it too. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
You're going to want to hear this. Take a look at this. Ooh, ah. Annie.
Is that what I think it is?
It's exactly what you think it is. This is the Michael-approved cover for the upcoming biblical calendar for this year. But you know what? I've got more than just the cover. I've got details.
Which are?
This year's biblical calendar can also serve as a study companion to the Chronological Gospels. It's going to be awesome.
Now, do you need a Chronological Gospel Bible to follow the calendar?
Don't we all need a Chronological Gospel Bible?
That we do.
But no. In fact, it will serve as the calendar just like how it always has. And so they'll be able to use the calendar like they have every other year, with or without the Bible.
Now, because Laura and I believe that everyone deserves a Chronological Gospel Bible, if you go to roodawakening.tv/TCG and you type in the code RoodReview20, you will be able to get $20 off your copy of the Chronological Gospel Bible.
Yeah, they love us.
Now, when can they get the calendar?
Now, we're going to start taking pre-orders for the calendar in just a few days. If they go to roodawakening.tv/calendar14, that's roodawakening.tv/calendar14, they'll get all the details there about it, including the concept of it, how it's going to work, some sample images of what it'll look like, also when the calendar will be available, when it's going to ship out, and how you can get your calendar in person while you're at Passover in Charlotte.
Now, going back to there's only a few days left, there are only a few days left to receive your March Love Gift. So go to roodawakening.tv/give and reserve yours today.
Yes. Oh, one more reminder. Join us next week as we bring you the Rood Review. Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans.
In just a few moments, Michael is going to take us inside the tent of Abraham for the Kiddush. And then he's going to continue on in the book of Judges in the teaching that he has been doing. I want to just take a moment and thank all of you for joining us, and certainly want to thank Michael for allowing me to host with Scott this portion of Shabbat Night Live.
It has been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Now, as we promised, there is a musical guest who's going to be coming in just a moment as well, Mishkanim, and they are going to be sharing with us their musical song, Teshuvah. After that, we'll have Michael, and thank you for being here with us. And now, here is Mishkanim.
Forgotten and forsaken, but your love redeemed me back into the family. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, I am coming back. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, back to Zion. So many generations waiting for the restoration, but now I hear the shofar blow, calling back the seed in me. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, I am coming back. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, back to Zion. I prophesied as he commanded in the valley of dry bones. Ooh. And his spirit came upon them. They arose. They arose. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, we are coming back. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, back to Zion. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, we are coming back. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, back to Zion. I prophesied as he commanded in the valley of dry bones. Ooh. And his spirit came upon them. They arose. They arose. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, we are coming back. Hepzibah, Me'ula, Teshuvah, back to Zion. Walking in the lights, walking in the light of Torah, walking in the lights, walking in the light of Torah, walking in the lights, walking in the light of Torah, walking in the lights, walking in the light. We are dancing in the lights, dancing in the light of Torah, dancing in the lights, dancing in the light of Torah, dancing in the lights, dancing in the light of Torah.
Traditions that we inherited from Babylon through Constantine have us occasionally with a little plastic cup and a little round wafer in a church service having what is called communion. But Yeshua was not having communion with his disciples. It was the last meal before his crucifixion, which happened at the time the Passover lambs were being sacrificed the following morning. Yeshua took this opportunity to explain something that had been embedded in the Israelite culture for then over 1,000 years. Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine to Abraham, and he blessed the Most High, saying, Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, ha'motzi lechem min ha'aretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Yeshua said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. As often as you do it in remembrance of me. And so we break this bread and we do it in remembrance of him. Likewise, Yeshua took the cup and he blessed the Most High with that blessing that Melchizedek blessed the Most High. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, the King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. Yeshua said, this represents my shed blood, which will be poured out for the remission of sin. I will not drink another drop of the fruit of the vine. You take my cup and divide it among yourselves, because I won't drink it until I drink it again with you in my Father's kingdom. The marriage supper of the Lamb, Yeshua will lift this cup and he will say, L'chaim, to life everlasting. And until then, we remember what he's done and remember that marriage supper of the Lamb. Get ready. This is the Judges. The King is coming. And in order to understand the Judges and the ramification of the Judges and why it's important, we have to look at the first Judges, we have to look at the last Judges, and then we have to look at the book of the Judges. But we have to understand that when we speak of Judges, that it literally is judgment that is being met out according to a standard. And the standard are the commandments. That is what the standard is. These are the commandments of the Most High. And so when people speak of the judgment, the great white throne judgment, what are the standards for this? Is this just some kind of rules that the Almighty makes up at the last minute? In order for there to be judgment, there has to be rules. There has to be a standard for proper behavior. There has to be a standard for righteousness if one is going to be judged, because one has to be judged against a standard. And so to understand the standard that all man will be judged against, we have to go back where it is laid out, and that is the Torah. The instructions from the Almighty. That's the only place that we're going to find out what sin is. As it says in 1 John, that sin is the violation of the law, the violation of the Torah. That's what sin is. Sin is not the violation of man-made rules. Man doesn't have the authority to make rules that the Almighty will be judging by. And when people talk about judging and this person, about judging people, I'm so thankful that I don't have to judge anyone. One thing, I think I would be way too lenient because I know the things that I've done in life, and I would hope that the measuring stick that I would use to measure others would be used on me. So I would have a tendency to be a little bit on the lenient side, just knowing me. And that's the way I judge things. I lay down a hard standard, but, I don't judge people according to the standard. I put the standard down, which is the word of the Almighty. He has put the standard down, and that is how he will judge. And I've heard people come up with this. Well, on Judgment Day, that God won't look at you. When he looks at you, all he sees is Jesus, and you're covered by everything that Jesus did, and so you can't be judged. I don't know where anyone came up with that completely idiotic concept, but it's nowhere in the scriptures. In fact, it was at Shavuot, the very place that Yeshua did the miracle of healing the man who was lame for 38 years, that he said all judgment has been put in his hands, and he is going to judge. He will judge everyone, and he'll judge them according to the standard that he kept, which is the Torah. And so to understand the judges, we have to understand how these people were being judged, where they got off base, and why judgment had to come upon them. And so that is how we are going to see that, as the book of Judges states, the very last verse, because there was no king in Israel, the people did that which was right in their own eyes. But in fact, we learn that there was a king in Israel and he wasn't seen, the unseen king in Israel. And so it is in this generation in which we now live. Yeshua is the king from heaven. He came down and laid down exactly how we are to live the Torah. He gave it to us an example of how he lived, and he also gave it to us in his words. Man-made rules and regulations have no authority, but his authority, the authority of the Almighty, he is the one that set the standard. Yeshua has lived according to that standard, and he will judge according to that standard. So, one day we will stand before him and he will judge you according to the standard of the word. Right now, everyone is doing whatever they want to do. You've got religions out there and denominations by the scores, thousands and tens of thousands that make up all their own rules and completely ignore the rule of the Almighty. Well, religion is the fast track to the lake of fire. Yeshua said, most who call me Lord will be told to depart from me. Most will never find the gate that leads to life, and even fewer will walk that path. And so we have the opportunity in this day and time to judge ourselves according to the standard that is given to us in the Word and see what happened to Israel, because the things were written aforetime were written for our understanding, for our encouragement, for our admonition, so that we would know how to live and to take heed, take warning from that, because as he destroyed them for the disobedience, and they were not allowed to go in the promised land, and Moses himself not allowed to go in the promised land, so it is that those who call themselves follow the Messiah will not be allowed to go in the promised land, because they've made up their own religion and they are completely ignorantly, blissfully ignorant of anything Yeshua has to say. Blissful until that day that they're told to depart. And that is something I don't want any of you to participate in. We are in the 4th chapter of Deuteronomy, and we are I want to recap in verse 32, because this is Moses telling the people, after he said, especially remember the day of trumpets, the day the Almighty shouted down his commandments. And that, by the way, is what Leviticus 23, to remember the day of the blowing of trumpets. That is what is to remember, so that we are especially reminded of this every year. Now, of course, the Pharisees have changed that to Rosh Hashanah, in which we take sliced apples and dip it in honey and have a party and all, but that's not what it's about. It's to remember that no one has the authority to add to or subtract from the commandments given us at Mount Sinai. It is to remind us of the day of the blowing of trumpets and the commandments being shouted down. It is to remind us that we are not to learn the way of the heathen and learn how they worship and serve their gods, take on the same things, say we're doing it for him. We are not to make up our own gods in our imagination, on paper, in our Sunday school quarterlies, or any other way. We are to keep his commandments. We are to hear his word, and we are to do it. And then he says, ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man upon the earth. Ask from one side of heaven to the other, whether there's anything such a great thing as this is. Or has it ever been heard anything like this? Was there ever a time that people, flesh and blood humans, heard the voice of God speaking out of the midst of a fire, as you have heard and have seen and you have lived through? Has there ever been any record in the history of planet Earth? This is the question. And the answer is no. And the people that were there never denied it. They lived this thing out. It's only today in modern Israel you have scholars at Hebrew University saying, well, Mount Sinai was just a literary invention. And you got the head of the Department of Antiquities in Jerusalem called the Rockefeller Museum. The Rockefeller himself couldn't remember and asked the question, did I give 1 million or 2 million to start this Department of Antiquities. Couldn't even remember. That's what the Department of Antiquities is. It's a Rockefeller museum, okay? And they say that Mount Sinai will never be found because it's a literary invention. These people are complete more-offs. More-offs. They are more off than they are more on, okay? This is the ultimate in degradation. I don't think I could speak a word more harshly than someone being a more-off. But that is what we have there. There's literary invention. No, they're the ones that are denying it, not the people that were there, not the testimony of the people that went through this thing, but the people that are paid to promote evolution as the answer for why we're here. Whatever comes out, Biblical Archaeology Review, most of it is pure garbage. Pure garbage. Liars. Paid professional liars, paid by their universities to lie and blow smoke up each other's skirts to try to prove the Bible is wrong. They go out to places that the Bible doesn't say anything happened, and they dig around and say, well, the Bible's not true. Yeah. Well, while they have their lavish lifestyle, staying and playing in their hotels in Israel and goofing off most of the time, these people do no honest research whatsoever. This is what most of archaeology is today. But let me ask you, has it ever been heard that God, the Creator, attempted to go down and take out a nation for himself out of the midst of another nation, where an entire nation of people was in slavery, in captivity, and he took them out, and he did it by signs and wonders, by miracles, by incredible war, by a mighty hand, by destroying Pharaoh's chariots and army on the bottom of the Red Sea, and now we found it. They have found Pharaoh's chariots and army strewn for a mile and a half on the bottom of the Red Sea under 900 feet of water, and we've got it on video. Has this ever been heard of before? That he's come with a stretched out arm with great terror, all according that he did before your eyes in Egypt. Yes, you were young, you were under 20 years of age. Actually, you're under 18 years of age when that happened. And to you it showed that his might, that Yehovah, he is Elohim. Yehovah, Hu, Ha, Elohim. And there is none else like him. Out of heaven, he made you people, right here to hear his voice. And not one of them denied it because they were there. He made you to hear his voice that he might instruct you. And upon the earth, he showed you his great fire. And you heard the words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers, that's why he chose their seed after them and brought you out in his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt, to drive out nations from before you greater and mightier than you are, to bring you in and give you this land for an inheritance as it is this day. Therefore, I want you to know this very day, I want you to consider it deep in your heart that Yehovah, he is the God in heaven above. He is the God upon the earth beneath, and there is none else. Therefore, keep his statutes, keep his commandments, which I command you this day, because they're not Moses' commandments, they're the commandments of the Most High. Keep them. Guard them, shomer them. Shomer, as a watchman, watch over his statutes and commandments which I command this day, that it may go well with you and with your children, and that you may prolong your days upon the earth, which Yehovah, your Elohim, gives you forever. And now this next section is dealing with the cities of refuge. We're going to go right on by the cities of refuge. Maybe we'll touch on this when we come back and handle the Torah. And then we go right after that, chapter 5, verse 1. Moses is going to rehearse the 10 Commandments and the Day of Trumpets, what happened that day. And so we're not going to go through all this, but it says that Moses called all Israel and said to them, Shema Yisrael, hear Israel, hear and obey the statutes and judgments which I speak in your ears this day, that you may learn them and keep them, shomer them, guard them, and do them. Yahovah our Elohim made a covenant with us in Horeb. Okay, here he starts out. Listen to me now, I'm going to start talking. He made a covenant with us in Horeb. He made not this covenant with his fathers, with our fathers, but with us. Even us who are all here alive to this day. They were there. They saw this. Yahovah talked with you face to face in the midst of in the mount, out of the midst of the fire. And I stood between Yahovah and you at that time to show you the word of Yahovah, because you are afraid of the fire and you did not go up into the mount. But I did. And then and this is what he said, I am Yahovah, your Elohim. I'm your God, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You have no other gods in my face, I alone. And how do you make sure that you are having no other gods in his face? You don't regard any other commandments or rules or anything anyone says about them. You do what he says, and you do what Yeshua did. You don't do what people said Yeshua said. You do what he said. You do what he did. And so he goes on down and nails every one of these commandments. And we're not going to take the time to read them right now. And now we come to verse 23. And it came to pass, when you heard the voice out of the midst of the mountain, for the mountain burned with fire, that you came near, even all the heads of your tribes, and you said, Behold, Yahovah, our Elohim, our God, has showed us his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. We have seen this day that God doth talk with man, and he lives. We see this, and we're still alive. Verse 25, now, therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of Yahovah, our Elohim, anymore, we're going to die. For who is there of all flesh that has heard the voice of the living God speaking out of the midst of the fires we have and lived? So Moses, you go near, you listen to all that Yahovah says, and then you come back and speak to us everything that Yahovah speaks to you, and we will hear it. We will do it. We will shema, we will hear and obey it. And Yahovah, because I took your words up to him, and he heard your words, then he spoke to me, and he said, I've heard the voice of the words of this people, which they have spoken to you. They have well spoken that which they have spoken. Oh, that there was such a heart in them that they would fear me and keep all my commandments always. And then I might go well with them and with their children forever. So go and say to them, get into your tents, but as for you, stand here by me, and I will speak to you all the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which you shall teach them, that they may do them in the land that I give them to possess it. And again, here's the difference between the first 10 commandments and the commandments that are specifically to be done in the land. And some of these are to be done and can be done other places than just in the land. And then verse 32, it says, you shall observe to do, therefore, as Yahovah, your Elohim, commanded you, not turning to the right or the left. You're going to walk in all the ways which he commands you, so that it can be well with you, and that you may prolong your days in the land that you shall possess. And this is what it's all about, to prolong his days in the land. Now, we're going to go all the way to chapter 6, verse 1. Now we come into the Shema. This is where the Shema is. We'll start with verse 3. Therefore, hear Israel, Shema Yisrael, and observe and do it, that may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahovah, the God of your fathers, promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Shema Yisrael, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Here it is, Hear, O Israel, Yahovah our Elohim, Yahovah our Elohim, is one, Yahovah. And you shall love Yahovah, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. These words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. This day. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, last week we were doing it. The week before we started in this, the people are there listening to every word that he has to say. We are on chapter 6 right now. We just went through the 5th chapter, and I didn't even read it all. I recapped some of this. He is going to go on for 30 more chapters, and the people are going to stand there, and they are going to listen to every single word. These are important words, and I'm only going to be able to recap these things. And so he says in verse 7, you shall teach these words to your children and talk with them when you sit in the house and when you walk by the way, when you lay down and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be frontlets between your eyes, and they shall be on the post of your house and on your gates. You put them everywhere. Put my words everywhere. Not just this little phrase, Shema Israel, but all of these words, all of these commandments, and he's going to say some very important things. Verse 12, beware lest you forget Yahovah, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, that you fear him, and that you shall swear by his name. This is a commandment. We swear by his name. As Yahovah lives, I will do that. And Yeshua didn't contradict this. In the Greek version, yes, he says, do not swear at all. In the Hebrew Matthew, it's accurate quote. It says, do not swear falsely at all. Because they were not swearing in the name of Yahovah. They were swearing by the temple or the gold of the temple, and they were crossing their fingers. They were lying to the people. It was a code, a secret code. Get the Jonah code if you want to know the secret code. 10 hours of video that will take you into how to count to 3. You shall not, verse 14, go after other gods, the gods of these people round about you, because your God is a jealous God, and his anger will be kindled against you, and you shall be destroyed off the face of the earth. And that's why you will not see the new heaven and new earth unless you are obedient to his commandments. You will be destroyed because there will be a new heaven and new earth. You may not be wiped out now, but you will be in the future. And then, in verse 20, when your son asks you in the time to come, saying, what do these statutes and judgments and testimonies mean, which Yahovah our God commanded us? And then you're going to say to him, you're going to give him a history lesson. And then, and here is the point of it in verse 25, and it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahovah our Elohim as he commanded us. It shall be our righteousness, our, meaning self. Here is, ladies and gentlemen, self-righteousness. If you do the commandments of God, you in yourself have done a righteous act. As in the book of the Revelation, the bride dresses herself and she is adorned, and the bride's garments are the righteousnesses of the saints, or the righteous acts of the saints. You don't go to the marriage supper of the Lamb without righteous acts. Oh, you can say Jesus did it all, but no, he didn't. Jesus paid the death penalty. Yeshua paid the death penalty for the broken blood covenant. The penalty for the breaking of the blood covenant is the death of the offending party. The blood of bulls and goats and lambs and rams was an intermediary showing us that the death penalty was owed but could never make the payment. Just a constant reminder. But Yeshua, who never broke the covenant, died in the place of the guilty party. That way he can renew the covenant with the guilty party, making us the priests and kings that was offered to us in the 19th chapter of Exodus at Mount Sinai. And it's our righteousness, ladies and gentlemen, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Are you supposed to have good works? Are you supposed to have acts of righteousness? Absolutely. And if you don't have them, something is seriously wrong with you. You do not have the Spirit of the Holy One in you. Yeshua is not in you. The Messiah is not in you because you are not compelled in any way, shape, or form to keep his commandments. You don't even want to know what they are. You want to listen to some sappy, grinny, greasy grace preacher on television teach and speak all about grace when he doesn't know grace from the fires of hell. He would know grace. Oh, I could be speaking of any number of them. Grinning, greasy grace grapplers. Chapter 7, verse 2. When Yahweh shall deliver them before you, you smite them, utterly destroy them. Do not make a covenant with them. Don't show any mercy to them. Why do you not show mercy to the merciless? Because then, if you show mercy to the merciless, then you are not showing mercy to the merciful, to the righteous. Show them no mercy. You're not going to make marriages with them. Your daughter's not going to be married to their sons, and their daughter's not going to be married to your sons, because they will turn you away from serving your God, and you're going to serve other gods, as Solomon did. So will the anger of Yahweh be suddenly kindled against you, and he's going to destroy you very quickly. Thus shall you deal with them. You destroy their altars like Gideon is going to do in the Judges. You'll break down their images. You're not going to put up with any of their images. You're going to cut down their groves, their phallic symbols, like Washington Monument and the graveyards, which you see around every graveyard, these phallic symbols of eternal life. You're going to burn their graven images with fire because you are a holy people to Yahovah. Yahovah has chosen you to be a special people to himself above all the people that are upon the face of the earth. Yahovah did not set his love upon you or choose you because you were more in number, you're greater, better. No, he chose you because you were the fewest. He loved you. And because he would keep his oath, what he swore to his father, he was the one that brought you out of Egypt with a mighty hand. He redeemed you. And now know that Yahweh, your Elohim, he is God. He's the only God. He's the faithful God, which keeps his covenant and mercy with those that love him and keep his commandments. And if you love him, you will keep his commandments. If you don't love him, you won't keep his commandments. People that say, I just love Jesus, and they don't keep his commandments, liar! Liar! So it says in 1 John. It says, you're a liar. You're a bold-faced liar. He's going to repay those that hate him, that don't keep his commandments, and he's going to destroy them. And he's not going to be slack to those that hate him. He'll repay him to his face. So, therefore, you will keep his commandments, his statutes, and judgment, which I command you this day. This is what you are going to do. We're going to take a break for just a moment, and we're going to give you a chance to love our Heavenly Father. He said, don't forget the Levites who have no inheritance in the land. They live to serve me. Of course, we are all Kohanim. We're all priests who serve in the temple, but the Levites are the ones who shovel the sheep dung, who clean up the blood, who skin the animals, who do the hard work. And this is what we do here. We do the hard work, and we do it free of charge to you. And we do it because others have given. And I thank you. Let me take the time right now to thank all of you who stood with us all these years, all these months, those who are just decided just this last week to stand with us. Thank you. Thank you. Your reward is in heaven. You pick it up on the sea of fire and glass, okay? This is part of the garments that you'll wear to the marriage supper of the Lamb, because you gave a part of your life now to get the gospel of the kingdom out. Yeshua said, this gospel of the kingdom, the one he preached, has to be preached in all the world. This is what we're doing, and you are a part of it, and this is why you want to give, because you don't show up to the marriage supper of the Lamb just as you are. You either do something right, you either do something that cost you in this life for your service to him, or you don't get in. These are the plain facts, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I'm not teaching smoking cigars, playing harps for eternity, sitting on a cloud, okay? If that's your idea of heaven, that's so sad, so sorry for you. It's a lot bigger than that, people, because we're there for a short time, and then we reign with the Messiah. Make it worth his while. He's given you some talents. He's given you something in this life. Do something with them. Now your turn. Do something with them, or just go to the refrigerator and get something else to eat while somebody else takes your place and does it. Thank you, those of you standing with us. We'll be back in a minute. Give others a chance to do the same. See you then. Lest thou thinkest that I harpeth too much upon the paganism that is resident within the entire Christian church inherited from Babylon, lest you think that I go overboard on this, please, we continue on in verse 16. We'll jump on down. Again, the instruction, you shall consume all the people which Jehovah your Elohim shall deliver to you. Your eye shall have no pity upon them. And we find out what these people have been doing, these Canaanites, these rampant sex perverts, the sex slavery, the human profiteering. What's it called? The human slavery and bondage and sex slavery, and then, in murdering these people, the human trafficking that goes on among them. It says, your eye shall have no pity upon them. Neither shall you serve their gods, for that will be a snare to you. Again, do not get involved with the worship of these pagan gods. Let's jump all the way down, verse 25. The graven images are their gods. You shall burn with fire. You shall not desire the silver or gold that's on them, nor take it to you, lest it be you be snared therein. for it is an abomination to Yahovah your Elohim. It's an abomination, it's to'avah, it is sheketz, it is utterly repulsive, disgusting, putrid, and vile what they do to worship and serve their gods and do these rehearsals, and they try to clean them up. I mean, you know, there is no excuse, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I heard of people doing a 1 Corinthians 13 night on February 14th, you know, the day that is dedicated to the sex goddess, you know, God Cupid. And it's just rampant sex all over the world. I mean, that's what that day and that night is all about. But no, we're gonna baptize this and have 1 Corinthians 13 love night. You've got 360 some odd days other than that to do something like that. But no, we're gonna do it like the pagans do, but we're gonna say it's not really Valentine's Day. It's not really about Cupid. It's really not about having, you know, just absolutely unrestricted sex with anybody we want to on the planet. That's not what it's really about for us. We're gonna love each other. Oh, pick some other day. Do not learn the way of the heathen. It's an abomination. It's an abomination. Oh, you don't like hearing it's abomination? Then go do your own thing. You got your own religion anyway. It's 1 Corinthians 13 night, and then you got Halloween, and you got Easter, God's fertility. Go do it all. He says, don't even bring an abomination into your house. What's an abomination? A grove, a phallic symbol, a Christmas tree. Lest you be cursed like it is cursed, but you shall utterly detest it. You shall utterly abhor it. You shall burn it with fire. You shall cut it down like Gideon. You shall roast an ox on it. Except these things are just foul. And then it kind of changes things up here a little bit later in chapter 8, is that, you know, when you go into the land and you got the houses, you got your flocks, your gold and silver is multiplied, you know, be careful that you're not lifted up in pride and forget Yahovah, your Elohim. When things are good for you, remember him and do what? Keep his commandments. Let's go on. Let's continue on. Oh my goodness. Okay, here, how about verse 19? But if you do at all forget Yahovah and walk after other gods and serve them, worship them, I testify that you're going to perish because you would not be obedient to the voice of Yahovah, your Elohim. And what's his voice? Right here. It's his word. It's his word. This is his word. This is the will of God concerning your life. No, it didn't pass away. Heaven and earth is still here. Goodness gracious. All right, we're going to continue on here. Let's go to chapter 10. At that time, Yahovah said unto me, hew 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and take them up to me in the mountain, and make an ark of wood. I will write on the tables the words that were in the first ark, and I made an ark of shittim wood, etc. And in verse 4 it says, he wrote on the tables according to the first writing, the 10 commandments. So Moses, the first time, went up into the mountain, and the Almighty gave him 2 tables of stone written with the finger of the Almighty, and they were given to Moses. Moses came down. We had already broken the blood covenant, and we're all dead men. The Almighty said before he even got back, you know, get out of the way, I'm going to kill them all. Moses said, don't. Moses comes down. They've broken the commandments already. They have another god in his face. They're worshiping Apis and Hathor, the Egyptian cow and bull gods. And so he throws the commandments down. He breaks them. The next time the Almighty said, okay, this time you chisel out the stones, and you bring them up, and I will write on them the same commandments. They didn't change. This represents now Moses presenting the tables of our heart. This is the renewed covenant. It's the picture of that, ladies and gentlemen. The commandments didn't change. These are the commandments. They were broken. The very first commandment, and now we have to present our heart, and he will write it on our heart. And if he does not write the commandments on our heart, and if we do not, out of love, want to obey, then the commandments aren't written on our hearts. We are none of his. Most of the Christian world is in that. Christian by name, and that's all it is. Just like the Christian Quarter in Jerusalem. You want to see something non-Christian? Go to the Christian Quarter. Enough said. Come on my tour, I'll take you there. Enough said. And so he wrote on the tables, according to the first writing, the same 10 commandments, which Yahovah spoke to you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And Yahovah gave them to me. So if there's any question, they're the same ones he shouted down, the same ones written in tables of stone, now to be written on the tables presented by Moses, which represent the tables of our heart. And that's what it's all about. And then go down to verse 20. And it says, you shall fear Yahovah your Elohim, and shall serve him, and to him shall you cleave and swear by his name. Do not lie in any way, shape, or form. You are not to bear false witness. When you swear in his name, that means you will do it with every strength, every bit of power that is within you. Now we go to chapter 11. In verse 16, take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. How many times does he have to say this? Right in this one standing, the people are staying there. How many times does he have to repeat himself? And then Yahovah's wrath is going to be kindled against you. And then he's going to shut up the heaven. There's going to be no rain. There will be no fruit in the trees, and you are going to perish from off the good land. So, lay up these words in your heart, bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be frontlets between your eyes. And then, chapter 12, verse 1, these are the statutes and judgments which you shall observe to do in the land, which Yahovah, the God of your fathers, gives you to possess it. You shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which you shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains, upon the hills, and under every green tree. You shall overthrow their altars, break their pillars, burn their groves with fires, and you shall hew down the graven images of their gods. Destroy the names like Easter out of the place, like Tammuz. You shall not do so unto Yahovah your Elohim, but to the place which Yahovah your Elohim shall choose out of all the tribes to put his name there, even to his habitation, his dwelling place, his tabernacle shall you seek, and there you will come, and there you will bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes, your heave offerings, your vows, your free will offerings, the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks, and you shall eat there before Yahovah, and shall rejoice in all that you put your hand to, you and your household. See, life is supposed to be good, ladies and gentlemen. It is supposed to be wonderful. We are supposed to keep his commandments. We are supposed to get rid of all the paganism. But see, he said, when you go into the land, unfortunately, you can't do that in the rest of the planet. This is the Constitution for the land of Israel. It's not the Constitution of the United States of America. This was a nation founded upon Creator-given rights and responsibilities. It is no longer. We have gone completely away from that. This is completely a pagan nation, and there happens to be a few commandment keepers here. The rest are promise keepers. Who cares about keeping a promise? You keep the commandments of the Almighty. Your promises aren't worth the rock they're written on. You keep his commandments. Oh, my goodness. You shall not do, verse 8, after all the things that we do here this day. Every man does whatever is right in his eyes, for you are not yet coming to the rest for the inheritance what Yahovah your Elohim gives you. See, you're still not doing it. But one day you're going to be in the land, in the promised land, and you will do these things. And if you don't, you're going to get thrown out. And what happened? We got thrown out. We, the body of believers, are not yet in the promised land. And we're doing whatever we want to do. We have judges, but these judges are crooked as can be. They're the judges over our denominations. But we have a king. Our king can't be seen, but if we don't keep his commandments, our judges will turn corrupt, more corrupt, and more corrupt. And that's why I said in our opening session, there is no heresy left in the Christian world today. Because there's no such thing as sin. There's no such thing as righteousness. There is no holiness in the Christian world today. It has all been splaned away. We're doing what's right in our own eyes. But there's coming a day, you either do what is right in his eyes now, or you don't come into the promised land. And if you think you're getting in and staying, you ain't gonna make it. Continue on. Verse 19, it says, take heed to yourself that you do not forsake the Levite as long as you live on the earth. Are we still on the earth? Okay, don't forget the Levite, those who are doing the work of the ministry. Don't forget them. You forget them, don't worry, you'll be forgotten. As a matter of fact, you will soon forget everything I'm teaching. It'll all go away, and you will just be doing after your own imagination again. Oh, how about now we go to chapter 13. If you shall hear, say in one of your cities, certain men, the children of Belial, have gone out from among you and have withdrawn the inhabitants of the city, let us go and serve after other gods which you've not known. And then you are going to make search and make diligent inquiry and find out if it's the truth that such an abomination is wrought among you. And you are going to take action. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take action because the pulpits are filled with sons of Belial. Liars, those who say they represent the true Messiah, and they don't. They're there representing their paycheck and their denomination. Call them on it. And yet, the pulpits have many who are standing for the truth, and they don't have anyone standing with them. Oh. Chapter 14, verse 2. You are a holy people to Jehovah. He has chosen you to be a peculiar, a segula, a treasure to himself above all the nations. You shall not eat any abominable thing. Here it is. How clear can it be, ladies and gentlemen? You are not to eat any abominable flesh. In the millennial reign, Isaiah tells us that those who eat the mouse, the dog, the cat, the rat, the pig, the shrimp, the lobster, the cockroach, they're going to be executed. Those are the rules of the kingdom. Okay, the king isn't here now, so, I'm going to do whatever I want. Oh, yeah? And you think you're going to get into the kingdom then? Forget it. You ain't going to make it, buddy. It's over with. You obey now, you bow the knee now, or you will have no chance of bowing until the great white throne judgment, when someone comes up behind you with a rod of iron and hits you across the back of the knees with a full swing, then you will go down. And then you will say, I should have listened to what Moses said. I should have listened to what Yeshua said. I should have listened to what Rood said. Oh, how about verse 21? Not to eat anything that dies of itself, etc. For you are a holy people to Jehovah, your Elohim. You are holy. You are set apart. You shall not see the kid in its mother's milk. Here again, this is the worship of Easter, the Babylonian fertility goddess. Don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Don't dye Easter eggs. Do not have Sunday school projects of making Fabergé eggs or any of this nonsense. Don't do what the heathen do. How many times do you have to be told this, people? Verse 27, you shall not forsake the Levite that is within your gates, for he has no part or inheritance with you. You've got a choice. Are you going to take care of the Levites, or are you going to let me ask for it each week and still you do nothing? There are freeloaders in life. And guess what? At the end, there are no freeloaders. They are cast into the lake of fire. Be a freeloader as long as you want. Oh, you think you do a repeat after me prayer because someone said, do this repeat after me prayer and you're going to heaven? Oh, they don't even know what they're talking about. Heaven is a short stay, about 23 days exactly. You think you're going to be You know, and nobody goes to heaven when they die, my goodness. They're waiting the judgment. They're waiting the resurrection and then the judgment. Oh, you want to isolate a few verses so that you go up and fly around and appear on the Hallmark Channel and help your nephew out or your grandson out in the big championship football game, and you're going to help them out? Oh, yeah, right. People don't turn into angels. Dead people are dead people. Angels are alive, and some of them are demons. And those are the ones that are on the Hallmark Channel, the demons. And now, chapter 16, observe, guard the month of the Aviv, and keep the Passover to Yahweh your Elohim in the month of the Aviv. Yahweh, your God, brought you out of the land of Egypt by night, and that's why we're to eat it. And then it says, you shall sacrifice the Passover. And where is this to be done? In the land. It is not done the 40 years in the wilderness. The 38 years in the wilderness, it was never done. It's done in the land. We celebrate Passover today, but nobody can keep Passover today. You can't even do it in the land of Israel. And just as it said in verse 5, you may not sacrifice the Passover within any of your gates which Yahweh your God gives you, but the place where Yahweh shall place his name. That is where you're going to sacrifice the Passover, even at the going down of the sun at the season that you came out of Egypt. So what we do now is a rehearsal of a good thing that had happened in the past that Yeshua fulfilled. And I hope we get to do it with much more pizzazz when Yeshua reigns upon the earth. I look forward to going up to Jerusalem for this, as well as the Feast of Tabernacles, and as well as the Feast of Shavuot. But until then, I'm going to do it in Charlotte. I'm going to do it in South America, Africa. I'll do it wherever I am. Then the Feast of Shavuot, verses 9 through 12. The Feast of Shavuot, celebrate the Feast of Shavuot. The Feast of Sukkot, same chapter 16, verses 13 and following. And then finally in verse 16, 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before Yahweh in the place that he shall choose. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Shavuot, the Feast of Sukkot, and none shall appear before me empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessings that he has been given. And so we know that when some people come up to the feast, we make it as cheap as possible for those who have not yet been blessed. But then after that, it's time for people to be blessed and to come up and participate and to give and to be part of this whole thing and to enjoy it now. But in Jerusalem, yeah, come up, sacrifice an entire bowl and invite the entire neighborhood, the village to come up to this very exciting thing. And then it says to set up judges to judge righteously. In verse 18, judges and officers shall you make in all your gates. And then, verse 21, again, do not plant a grove of any trees near unto the altar of Yahweh, your Elohim, which you shall make. Neither shall you set up any image, which Yahweh hates. So don't plant any trees anywhere near an altar. Don't even come close to doing what the heathen do. Don't even come close to it. And certainly do not put up one of those phallic symbols in your church and in your home and have your children bow down under an evergreen tree festooned with the gold and silver testicles of Ra, and then take presents out from under the tree as a gift from their God, who came down the chimney in a cherry red suit at the time of the reincarnation of Nimrod. Talk about an abomination. This is what's going on. Oh. And then, you shall come. This is verse 9. Come to the priests and Levites, and to the judge that shall be in that day, and they shall show you the sentence of judgment. They will be the ones that judge. And you shall do according to their sentence, which they of that place which Yahweh shall choose shall show you. And you shall observe to do all that they inform you, according to the sentence of the law which they teach you, according to the judgment that they shall show you. You shall not decline from the sentence which they show you, to the right or to the left. That man will not do presumptuously, and will not hearken to the priest that stands to minister there before Yahweh or to the judge. Even that man shall be put to death. And that's how you're going to put away evil from Israel. And this is what the jurisprudence system in the United States of America is based upon this. Judges are supposed to be righteous judges, judge righteous judgment, and are not to be bribed. And that gives details about if you choose a king, because the Almighty knows. He says he's to make a copy of the Torah. He needs to read out of it and judge according to the Torah, because he's a judge. What does he judge according to? What's the standard? It is a standard of the Torah. He is not to multiply horses, and he's not to multiply wives. Now, he can have a few, but he's not to get a whole bunch of them. It tells us what to do, and how you're to treat, if you have more than one wife in here, which one is usually enough for anybody. And then it's got the law concerning the priests and Levites, beginning in chapter 18, in verse 1 and following. And in the chapter of 18, we have really the law concerning the Levites, and then the law concerning the abomination of wizardry, witchcraft, necromancers, those who contact the dead and dead spirits, and what is going to happen, and then the prophecy concerning the prophet. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the very last instructions of Moses. He's been with the people now for 40 years. They are standing, listening to every word. And now he is going to give them the detail about the prophet and why the prophet is so important. And it is so important that we have to stop here at this moment. And we are going to wait, because these words are going to be quoted more than any other thing in the Gospels. Yeshua will quote them, the people will quote them, because the prophet is what Yeshua came the first time as the one who lays down the rule of law. This is the way it is. And those who do not Shema, listen and obey that prophet, they will be judged accordingly. He will be the judge. And he says, if you are anomia without Torah, you will be thrown into the lake of fire. These are the words of Yeshua. I didn't say it, but we have to take a look at it next week. I'd like to pray. Yivarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Ya'ir Yehovah panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom. B'shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Sar shalom. Shabbat shalom, Torah fans. Have a good Sabbath. Shavua Tov. Have a good week, and we'll see you back here next week for Shabbat Night Live. Lehitro. Bye-bye. Adios. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes an extreme amount of energy, time, and money to make these broadcasts available, these teachings available to you and to those around the world. And we really need you to seriously stand with us on this very project that Yeshua put us on, to take the gospel of the kingdom that he taught to the entire world in the last days. The opportunity is there. With more than 30 people on staff just here in the United States to make these things available, it takes a lot of money, an unbelievable amount of money, a scary amount of money to give this stuff away free around the world. And if you have been blessed by these teachings, then I'm asking you to stand with us, to financially support this ministry, tithe into these modern day Levites who are getting the gospel of the kingdom out to the world. Now, I know that we're all Kohanim, we're all priests, but the Levites are the ones that skin the animals, that clean up the mess, that have to do the hard work. And if you appreciate the work that we're doing and reaching out to you around the world, please stand with us and stand with us today. Thank you. Bless you. And I'll see you when the smoke clears.